The courtroom erupted before anyone could even call order. "You think you're some kind of hero? A damn general," the cop spat, eyes blazing with contempt as he stood up, slamming his fist against the wooden bench. His voice cracked with rage, but beneath it was a sharp, poisonous laugh that echoed through the room like a challenge thrown down in a fight. "You're nothing but a washed-up soldier, a black man playing dress-up in a uniform that means nothing here." The insult hit like a slap, raw and loud. The general didn't flinch. His eyes burned with quiet fury as he stood, towering with calm dignity, but the tension was about to explode. "You're drunk on your badge, thinking it gives you the right to belittle, to demean." The general's voice was steady, but every word carried the weight of years of battle, both on foreign soil and within a system rigged against him. "You want to fight? Then fight with honor, not with your cowardly sneers." The cop sneered back, venom dripping from every syllable. "Honor? You think your medals mean shit when the people I protect think you're a threat? You're the problem, General. And I'm the solution." The judge banged the gavel, trying to restore order, but the fire in that room wasn't so easily doused. The lawyer for the general stepped forward, voice sharp and controlled. "This court will not tolerate racial slurs or disrespect. You will address the general with the dignity his service demands." The cop laughed again, louder this time, like he was above the law, above the rules. "Dignity? You want dignity from me? You don't get it just because you marched in a uniform. You get it by how you live now. And right now, you're nothing but a joke." The general's jaw tightened, and the room held its breath as a long, cold silence stretched out. Then the cop did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone and made a call, smirking like he held the ace up his sleeve. Before anyone could react, the narrator's voice cut through the tension, deep and resonant, full of fire. "In a world where power is often wielded like a weapon, where justice is clouded by prejudice, this moment is more than a courtroom showdown. It's a battle for respect, for truth, for the right to be seen as more than a stereotype. Here, a man's honor is being challenged by hatred, and what happens next will show us if courage can break the chains of bigotry." The courtroom waited, every eye fixed on that phone call, knowing this fight was far from over. The call hung in the air like a thunderclap, the room holding its breath as the cop's smirk widened, certain he had sealed his victory. But the general's eyes didn't waver, they burned with quiet confidence, the kind forged in decades of sacrifice and relentless battles both on foreign fields and at home. "You think you can intimidate me with a phone call?" he said, voice steady but ice-cold. "I've faced worse threats in a foxhole than whatever you're trying to pull here." The cop sneered, waving his phone like a weapon. "You don't know who I'm calling. You'll see." The tension snapped. The judge slammed the gavel again, voice booming over the rising chaos. "Enough. This is a courtroom, not a playground for childish taunts." But the cop wasn't done. "I'm calling the chief. You think this old war hero's gonna walk out clean? Think again. This isn't about honor, it's about power, and I have the backing to make sure you fall." The general's loyal friend, a young attorney who had stood by him since day one, stepped forward, jaw clenched. "Your threats won't silence us. This fight isn't just about you and him. It's about what's right, about justice that should be blind to color or rank." The cop laughed again, but this time the sound felt hollow, as if the walls were closing in. Suddenly, the courtroom doors burst open, and two uniformed officers stepped in, their presence shifting the atmosphere. "Sir," one said to the cop, "we've received orders from the chief to escort you out for contempt of court and disrupting proceedings." The cop's smirk faltered, confusion flashing across his face before anger took over. "You can't do this. I have the law on my side." The general stood taller, voice calm but resolute. "The law is not a weapon to wield against those who defend it. It is a shield for the oppressed and a sword against injustice." The courtroom erupted into whispers, some in shock, others in quiet applause. The stakes had just skyrocketed. As the cop was led away, still shouting threats, the narrator's voice returned, low and powerful. "When hatred masquerades as authority, when prejudice hides behind a badge, it's the courage to stand tall in the face of fear that shines brightest. This isn't just a story about one man's fight. It's a call to every one of us, to challenge the systems built on bias, to demand respect where it's owed, and to never back down when justice is on the line. But beneath this victory, a deeper battle is brewing. A battle that will test loyalty, reveal betrayal, and force every character to confront their true selves. Because sometimes, the loudest call for justice comes from the quietest moments before the storm." The courtroom held its breath again, knowing this was only the beginning. The courtroom drama was far from over. Behind the scenes, shadows moved in silence, whispers of deals struck in back rooms, secret alliances forged in the name of power and self-preservation. As the general sat, steady but guarded, his loyal attorney uncovered whispers of a conspiracy deeper than anyone expected. The cop who had just been dragged out wasn't acting alone. He was a pawn in a dangerous game run by powerful men who feared what the general represented: truth, integrity, and a challenge to the status quo. These men wanted to protect their own interests at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing justice. Suddenly, it was revealed that the cop's call to the chief had set off a chain reaction. The chief, once thought to be an honorable leader, was tangled in corruption and willing to bury anyone who threatened his grip on power. Documents surfaced showing meetings with shady figures, evidence destroyed, and witnesses intimidated. The betrayal cut deep. The very system sworn to uphold justice was rotting from within. The general's trusted allies grew wary, realizing they couldn't trust even those in the highest ranks. The courtroom's tension grew unbearable as these revelations came to light, shaking everyone's faith. At the same time, new obstacles appeared. Social media exploded with conflicting narratives, some defending the cop, accusing the general of exaggeration or playing the victim. Fake news spread like wildfire, drowning out the truth and turning public opinion against the very man who had sacrificed everything for his country. Friends of the general found themselves under scrutiny, their loyalty questioned. Even the judge faced pressure from outside forces, threatening to derail the case entirely. It was clear the antagonist's true nature was far worse than anyone imagined, a puppeteer pulling strings to keep power, influence, and prejudice alive. But the general was no stranger to hardship. With every betrayal exposed, his resolve hardened. He refused to let the corrupt system silence him or erase his legacy. The conspiracy that sought to crush him only fueled his determination to expose the truth, no matter the cost. The loyal friend by his side stood firm, offering unwavering support amid the chaos. In the darkest moments, the underdog's spirit burned brightest, reminding everyone watching that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with weapons, but with unbreakable courage and the refusal to give up. The courtroom held its breath, knowing the fight was escalating, and nothing would ever be the same again. The pressure was crushing, and the wall seemed to close in tighter with every passing moment. The general felt it deep in his bones, the weight of years of injustice, the countless battles fought not only overseas but in the courtroom, in boardrooms, in the hearts of those who refused to see him as anything but a threat. The betrayal by those who were supposed to stand beside him wasn't just professional, it was personal. His closest allies faced smear campaigns, his reputation was twisted, and the very people who promised justice began to turn their backs. The emotional toll was unbearable, and for the first time, cracks started to show. One night, alone in his dimly lit apartment, the general broke down. Years of bottled-up frustration and pain spilled out in anguished sobs. He thought of the sacrifices he made, the dreams deferred, and the system that seemed determined to break him. His phone buzzed, messages from friends, family, supporters, but the loneliness was deafening. The all is lost moment had arrived, when even the strongest warriors wonder if the fight is worth it. The betrayal, the public humiliation, the endless battles, it was too much. Yet, in that darkness, a spark flickered. His loyal friend found him, sitting on the floor surrounded by memories and medals that suddenly felt heavy and hollow. "You're not alone," she said, voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just your fight. It's all of ours. You've carried this burden longer than you should have. But we see you. We believe in you." That moment shifted something deep inside the general. The weight didn't disappear, but it became a fuel, a fire to ignite his comeback. The consequences of past actions, the silence of bystanders, the complicity of power, were clear. But so was the path forward. As the courtroom drama simmered on, with public opinion wavering and the opposition closing in, the general prepared to rise again. The battle was far from over. The breaking point had been reached, but it wasn't the end. It was the moment before the storm, the calm before the fiercest fight of all. The underdog, battered but unbowed, was ready to reclaim his dignity and expose the rot beneath the surface. The world was watching, and soon, everything would change. Just when it seemed the fight was slipping through the general's fingers, a revelation shattered the courtroom's fragile balance and flipped everything on its head. New evidence surfaced, a secretly recorded conversation between the cop and a high-ranking official exposing their plan to frame the general, to destroy his reputation and silence him forever. The audio crackled through the speakers, raw and undeniable. Suddenly, the story everyone thought they knew was completely rewritten. The cop wasn't a rogue agent, he was a tool of a much larger scheme, one designed to protect entrenched power and preserve systemic racism. But the surprises didn't end there. The general's once estranged mentor, a retired military officer known for his unshakable integrity, appeared unexpectedly to testify. His voice was calm but powerful as he revealed how the general had long been targeted because of his race and refusal to bend to corrupt authority. Their bond, once thought broken by years of silence and misunderstanding, now became a beacon of hope. Allies emerged from unexpected places, a whistleblower within the police department who risked everything to come forward, and even a former adversary who, moved by truth and justice, switched sides. The courtroom was a tinderbox, ready to ignite. The drama escalated to fever pitch as the new evidence dismantled the antagonist's facade. The cop's facade of bravado cracked under scrutiny, revealing fear and desperation beneath. The chief's corruption was no longer a whispered rumor but a public scandal, unraveling with every testimony. Social media turned, flooding with support for the general, while the narrative of victimhood and oppression grew louder and impossible to ignore. The courtroom was no longer just a battleground, it was a stage for truth's triumphant roar, the scales tipping toward justice. But in the heart of this chaos, the question remained, could the general overcome the damage already done? The stakes had never been higher, and every character was forced to confront their true selves under the unforgiving spotlight of truth. As the evidence piled up, those who had hidden behind lies and deception began to unravel. The cop, once brazen and cocky, found himself cornered, his threats silenced by undeniable proof. His allies in high places started distancing themselves, their loyalties shifting like sand under the pressure of truth. The chief's empire of corruption crumbled, revealing a network of greed and prejudice that had poisoned the very foundation of justice. Public opinion swung decisively, the tide turning in favor of the general as his dignity and strength inspired a movement beyond the courtroom walls. Confrontations ignited, fiery exchanges between the general and his accusers, moments where truth pierced through the veil of lies with surgical precision. The authority figures who had tried to suppress the truth were forced to reckon with their complicity, their reputations and careers hanging by a thread. The victim who had found strength became a beacon, showing that no amount of hatred or power could break a spirit fueled by justice and resilience. The courtroom was a crucible where character was tested, and the antagonist's downfall was no longer a question of if, but when. Yet, even as the walls closed in on the corrupt, the fight was far from over. The general and his supporters knew that true justice required more than courtroom victories, it demanded change, accountability, and unwavering courage to face the scars left behind. This reckoning was a turning point, a battle cry for all who had been silenced or sidelined. The final showdown was approaching, where every secret would be exposed, every lie laid bare. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only decide the fate of the men in the courtroom but would echo far beyond its walls, challenging the very heart of justice itself. The air was thick with tension as the courtroom filled with a charged silence, every eye locked on the two men at the center of this storm, the general, calm but resolute, and the cop, desperate and cornered. This was it, the climactic showdown where years of deception, pain, and betrayal would finally meet the relentless force of truth. The general's voice cut through the room like a sharpened blade, each word deliberate and powerful, exposing the antagonist's lies with unwavering clarity. No more hiding behind badges or empty threats. This was justice, raw and unyielding. The cop tried to mount a defense, but the cracks were too wide, the evidence too damning. The judge's gavel seemed to echo the collective heartbeat of those who had waited so long for this moment. Secrets spilled out, hidden recordings, manipulated evidence, whispered bribes, all unraveling in real time. The authority figures who had once wielded their power without consequence now stood exposed and vulnerable. The courtroom, once a place of silent oppression, transformed into an arena where truth claimed its hard-won victory. The role reversal was complete, the oppressor was laid bare, and the once dismissed underdog was now the undeniable hero. In that moment, justice was not just served, it was a statement. The general's dignity, resilience, and unwavering pursuit of truth shattered the walls built by prejudice and corruption. The reformed bully, now stripped of his power, faced the consequences he had long evaded. Supporters in the courtroom cheered quietly, knowing this was more than a personal win, it was a victory for every voice silenced by injustice. But beyond the cheers and the rulings, the moral lesson was clear: power used to harm others always crumbles before the strength of integrity and courage. As the gavel fell one final time, signaling the end of the battle, the general stood tall, not just as a soldier or a man wronged, but as a symbol of hope and change. The courtroom drama had reached its explosive conclusion, but the story was far from over. This was a turning point, a moment that would inspire countless others to stand up, speak out, and fight for what is right. The stage was set for the moral reckoning that would echo long after the walls of the courthouse faded into silence. The courtroom emptied, but the echoes of what had just unfolded lingered in the air, heavy, powerful, and impossible to ignore. The general's journey was no longer just a personal battle, it had become a symbol of something much larger, an unyielding fight against injustice, prejudice, and abuse of power. The narrator's voice rises now, clear and steady, to deliver the lesson carved into every moment of this storm. This story is about the cost of racism, the strength of truth, and the undeniable power of standing up when the world tries to silence you. Years later, the general's life had changed, but not just because of the verdict. He became a beacon for those who felt invisible, a mentor to young people fighting their own battles. His victory sparked reforms within the very system that once sought to destroy him. The cop who laughed in court faced the consequences, losing his badge, reputation, and the respect he never truly earned. The corrupt chief was exposed, his career in ruins, reminding everyone that no one is above the law. Meanwhile, the loyal friend who stood by the general's side found her own voice amplified, inspiring others to be courageous in the face of injustice. The narrator's tone softens but remains resolute. This story is a call to action. It reminds us that racism, no matter how deeply rooted, can be challenged and overcome when ordinary people choose to act with courage and integrity. It teaches that power abused is power that will eventually fall, and that those who stand firm in truth, even when alone, can change the course of history. The message is clear: silence is complicity, and justice demands more than words, it demands action. As the final lines fade, the narrator leaves the audience with a challenge, to look within themselves and ask, what will you do when faced with injustice? Will you stand by, or will you stand up? This is not just a story to be heard, it's a legacy to live by. Because when one person dares to speak truth to power, they ignite a flame that can light the way for generations to come. The battle is never easy, but it is always worth fighting. And the truth? The truth always wins in the end. Thank you for watching this powerful story. Remember, standing up against injustice starts with one voice, yours. If this story moved you, share it, spread the message, and be the change you want to see. Together, we can build a world where truth, courage, and equality prevail. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never stop fighting for what's right. Until next time, take care and keep standing tall.